So last time we created a very simple scene that just had a default cube and a cat JPEG. For this VR birthday card, we're going to want something a little more interesting than a cube, right? In fact, the first thing we're probably going to want is a birthday cake, and then we're going to want trees and some mountains. So this is inherently a visual task. We have a bunch of different objects that we want to position around each other. Because this is something people commonly want to do, Mozilla created a free tool called Spoke. So Spoke it looks like a complex 3D editor, but it's actually very simple. It lets you drop objects in, move them around, and then we can save it to a single file. This file is called GLTF, which is like the JPEG for 3Ds. It's a standard, everybody can import and export it now. We've got a menu right here. Everything in my scene is listed here in the hierarchy view. I can select something, choose the light, choose the spawn point, choose the ground, and I can see the properties down here. So let's add something. Let's start with a birthday cake. Let's add a model. Now, I don't actually have a birthday cake model, and in fact, I'm not a 3D designer, so I probably, if I tried to draw a birthday cake in 3D, would not look very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to search. There's this amazing website called Sketchfab, and Sketchfab is a place where 3D artists can upload and share and sell their models. So let's search for cake. We found this really beautiful model here called Torta de Chocolate. And it looks like lots of people have viewed it and voted it as being very popular. And it's loading, it's loading. We can see that it has 155,000 triangles, which is a lot. That's going to take a long time to download. It's going to be very difficult to render on a phone. It may render very slowly. This is the sort of thing I would use in an ad or a movie, which when you don't care about the download time. But for something on the web, it's going to be a little too big. We can see it finally loaded. Looks gorgeous, but a little too much for our birthday card. So let's search instead for low poly cake. So we want a small number of polygons. And again, I'm going to check downloadable. Now here is a cute one. Says happy birthday above it. It's happy birthday cake. It looks nice. Still been very well reviewed. And we can see this one is only 17,000 polygons. I try to use about 10,000 or less for most of my objects, but since this is the primary object that we're going to look at, it's okay to have a few more. You can think of polygons as like pixel count. You want to use your pixels budget on whatever's the most important thing. This looks super cute. I think my niece is going to love it. Now, I could download it here, and Sketchfab would let me choose in the original format or auto-convert it to GLTF. However, because I'm using Spoke, I can just give it the URL of Spoke directly, paste it in here, and it will now fetch it from Sketchfab and add it directly to my scene. And now I can select the model, move it back and forth in my scene, rotate it around, scale it. The scale looks pretty good. Maybe make it just a tad smaller. Made it a tad smaller. It looks good. Okay. Now let's give it a backdrop. Let's search for low poly mountain. Now here's some mountain scenes, and we can see some of them are very detailed and some are low poly, but they're more than I want. I really just wanted the mountain itself. Here I found this thing called a glass mountain that looks really cool. I think my niece will like this. It's got like a glowing crystal above the top of it. That'll be fun. You can see the triangle count is great. It's only 696 triangles, 481 vertices, and it's Creative Commons license, so I'm free to use it in my project. So now we'll copy and paste this in. And here is my mountain. We can see the size looks good, but of course it's not where I want it to be. So let's slide this back. One thing you'll notice in Spoke is that everything moves along the 1 meter grid by default. We found that to be very useful. But you can turn snapping on and off if you choose. Let's make this mountain actually a little bit bigger. Okay, so here's my scene. I've got my cake. I've got some mountains behind it. So if you're a designer and want to create 3D objects, I suggest starting with a tool like Blender. Blender is an open source 3D modeling tool, has pretty good support, and in fact Mozilla and several other companies are contributing to improve the VR and GLTF support. in Blender. When you export from Blender, make sure you don't use any of the extensions. Use the standard physically based rendering system. Now I think we need a few trees. There's all sorts of cute trees to choose from. Let's start, this one looks good. And it only has 64 vertices, so that'll be great. Also CC licensed. So let's add that. We can see that tree is much bigger than I want, so let's shrink that down. And I'd like a couple of them. Instead of adding multiple trees, adding the file multiple times, I can just hit Command D or right click and choose duplicate. And now I have 2 trees. So now I can start positioning these things around. Let's maybe put some over on this side, and one more over here. And I'd like a second kind of tree to add some variety. So here's a completely different type of tree that I think looks really cute. I like the way they design the branches. So let's add that in. And here, so now we've got this tree. I think it's almost as tall as the mountains. That's probably a little big. So I'll scale that down, zoom in, put one of these guys right here, and let's duplicate it and add another one. Okay, I think that is a very nice looking scene. So the next step, first I can save it. Save birthday card, always save. Now what we want to do is export. There are 2 forms of GLTF. They're identical except one takes the textures and the geometry and everything and squishes it into a single binary file that's optimized for download, called a binary GLTF file, or GLB. And that's what I want to use for this. So it's going to export my birthday card. Now we can open the folder where that is. There is birthdaycard.glb. Now I'll go to my project directory and just copy it in. Now back in the code, in the init scene screen, we're going to load up this GLTF file. So we need a GLTF loader, and we're going to load birthday card GLTF. And I give it a callback function, which will call me back when it's been loaded, and I can just add it to the scene. I misspelled it. It is actually birthday card.glb. Now let's reload. And we can see that the entire scene has loaded. Except right here, all we can see is the mountains. We can't see anything else. That's because by default, it's going to load it at position 0, 0, 0. So we just want to translate it. Model.scene.position set, leave the x and the y the same, but we will set the z to negative, let's try -10, see how that looks. And there's our scene. Oh, but the cat is still floating in the middle, so let's get rid of the cat. And any of the event code that talks to the cat cube. There we go. Here is our scene with the birthday cake, some really cute trees, very nice background, mountains here, and except the sky is red, so we'll want to change that in the future. But we have a nice scene. We were able to grab models from several different locations on Sketchfab, different artists, combine it all, position it all into a single scene, export it as a single file, which we can then put in our card, and there we go. So the next thing we're going to want to do is change the lighting. Certain things are reflected, which shouldn't be. I don't want a shiny tree. And of course, the sky looks completely wrong. We want something much better. So we'll focus on lighting the sky next time.